Hello, I hope you're well. Thank you for joining with me again as we continue our exploration of A Course in Miracles. Today we're going to finish chapter 18, that final section. We're going to practice lesson 23, and then we'll finish by looking at a principle in miracles. I'd love to hear in the comments how you're doing so far, what works for you, what you're bumping up against, any ahas or observations that you've made in your personal life that you might attribute to doing this exploration of A Course in Miracles. Please feel free to share. I'd love to hear. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Read A Course in Miracles, clicking on the text, scrolling down to chapter 18, The Passing of the Dream, and we are in section 9, The Two Worlds. All right, paragraph 1. You have been told to bring the darkness to the light, and guilt to holiness. And you've also been told that error must be corrected at its source. Therefore, it's the tiny part of yourself, the little thought that seems split off and separate, the Holy Spirit needs. The rest is fully in God's keeping and needs no guide. Yet this wild and delusional thought needs help because in its delusions it thinks it is the Son of God, whole and omnipotent, sole ruler of the kingdom it's set apart to tyrannize by madness into obedience and slavery. This is the little part you think you stole from heaven. Give it back to heaven. Heaven has not lost it, but you have lost sight of heaven. Let the Holy Spirit remove it from the withered kingdom in which you set it off, surrounded by darkness, guarded by attack, and reinforced by hate. Within its barricades is still a tiny segment of the Son of God, complete and holy, serene and unaware of what you think surrounds it. So I think the only thing that I'll point out here is the very first part, which is you have been told to bring the darkness to the light and guilt to holiness. And you have also been told that error must be corrected at its source. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you have been told, and so where did that direction come from? Who told us? Where did we hear that direction? So somebody told us, we have been told to bring the darkness to the light. The darkness in this case is guilt, fear, anger, grievance, judgment, attack. Darkness to the light and guilt to holiness. And you have also been told, so on the flip side, we've also been told that error, so the error in our thinking, which then is explained in the rest of the paragraph, which is where we think we are separate, this wild delusional thought of separation, that we've been told that that error in our thinking must be corrected at its source. And that's really true for us, isn't it? So if we're going to heal anything properly, to find a cure, we really need to get to the source of the problem, or change the conditions at least that created the problem in the first place. And I feel like that's what the Course is really doing. It's helping change the conditions. So from the Eastern Healing Arts point of view, from the energetics point of view, if something's manifested in our reality through the observable quality of our thinking, the observable feeling states as emotions, or observable symptoms and pathologies in the body, we can say that they only made possible because the conditions were right for them to be possible. And so if we want to change the quality of our thinking, we need to change the environment, we need to change the conditions. if we want to change the quality of our feeling states, then we need to change the environment, we need to change the conditions. Same with the body. If we want to change the way the body is feeling, is being, then we need to change the conditions. And so the overseeing environment is the environment of mind. And so here we're being told that the only thing that we need to bring to God is that original illusion, that original delusion. All right, so I'm going to go back now to the text. Let me go ahead and share. It's for paragraph 2. Be you not separate, for the one who does surround it has brought union to you, returning your little offering of darkness to the eternal light. How is this done? It is extremely simple, being based on what this little kingdom really is. The barren sands, the darkness and the lifelessness are seen only through the body's eyes. Its bleak sight is distorted, and the messages it transmits to you who made it to limit your awareness are little and limited, and so fragmented they are meaningless. Let's continue with paragraph 3. From the world of bodies made by insanity, insane messages seem to be returned to the mind that made it, and these messages bear witness to this world, pronouncing it to be true. For you sent forth these messengers to bring this back to you. Everything these messages relay to you is quite external. There are no messages that speak of what lies underneath, for it is not the body that could speak of this. Its eyes perceive it not. Its senses remain quite unaware of it. Its tongue cannot relay its messages, yet God can bring you there if you're willing to follow the Holy Spirit through seeming terror, trusting Him not to abandon you and leave you there. For it is not His purpose to frighten you, but only yours. You are severely tempted to abandon Him at the outside ring of fear, but He would lead you safely through and far beyond. So again, from the world of bodies made by insanity, insane messages seem to be returned to the mind that made it. From the world of bodies made by insanity. The world of bodies is made from the insane, delusional, illusional thought that we are separate from the kingdom of heaven, separate from God, separate from the Creator. I like the image of the outside ring of fear. It might be a good one to see in your mind's eye as you enter into contemplation or meditation, that you endeavor to see the light on the inner circle of your mind as you move through that ring of fear. What do you think? Do you think you could use that imagery in your own personal practice? Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing this screen for paragraph 4. Okay, more about the circle of fear. The circle of fear lies just below the level the body sees, and it seems to be the whole foundation on which the world is based. Here are all the illusions, all the twisted thoughts, all the insane attacks, the fury, the vengeance and betrayal that were made to keep the guilt in place, so that the world would rise from it and keep it hidden. Its shadow rises to the surface, enough to hold its most external manifestations in darkness, and to bring despair and loneliness to it and keep it joyless. Yet its intensity is veiled by its heavy coverings and kept apart from what was made to keep it hidden. The body cannot see this, for the body arose from this for its protection, which depends on keeping it not seen. The body's eyes will never look on it. They will see what it dictates. Wow, so interesting to wrap our heads around that, right? So now we're being given an even more elaborate description of this circle of fear that is beyond what our eyes see. But what we experience through the physical body is the effect of that circle of fear. From the energetic standpoint, I would say that circle of fear is a frequency, a dense frequency, or even like an energetic mucus. In some private sessions, when in that very deep state of relaxation, when the mind has expanded beyond the experience of this small eye-oriented perspective, when consciousness is expanded to include more than what this is, I have had people share that they have come across this cloud of more or less a dark energy. And so to that, the paragraph is correct, because the paragraph is saying that the physical eyes, the body's eyes, cannot see it. And now this also makes me think of, again, the ayahuasca experience that I had, because what I saw in that ayahuasca experience was not seen through my body's eyes. It was seen through my mind's eye. And in the moment that I was experiencing it, it was as real. The experience that's taking place in the mind's eye, just like a night dream, is as real as this is through our waking life and seeing reality through our physical eyes. All right, I'm just going to go back to share the screen for paragraph 5. The body will remain guilt's messenger and will act as it directs as long as you believe that guilt is real. For the reality of guilt is the illusion that seems to make it heavy and opaque, impenetrable, and a real foundation for the ego's thought system. Its thinness and transparency are not apparent until you see the light behind it, and then you see it as a fragile veil before the light. Let's keep going for paragraph 6. This heavy-seeming barrier, this artificial floor that looks like rock, is like a bank of low, dark clouds that seem to be a solid wall before the sun. Its impenetrable appearance is wholly an illusion. It gives way softly to the mountain tops that rise above it, and has no power at all to hold back anyone willing to climb above it and see the sun. It is not strong enough to stop a button's fall, nor hold a feather. Nothing can rest upon it, for it is but an illusion of a foundation. Try but to touch it, and it disappears. Attempt to grasp it, and your hands hold nothing. We'll continue with paragraph 7. Yet in this cloud bank, it is easy to see a whole world rising, a solid mountain range, a lake, a city, all rise in your imagination. And from the clouds the messengers of your perception return to you, assuring you that it is there. Figures stand out and move about, actions seem real, and forms appear and shift from loveliness to the grotesque, and back and forth they go as long as you would play the game of children's make-believe. Yet however long you play it, and regardless of how much imagination you bring to it, you do not confuse it with the world below, nor seek to make it real. Let's keep going for paragraph 8. So should it be with the dark clouds of guilt, no more impenetrable and no more substantial. You will not bruise yourself against them in travelling through. Let your guide teach you their unsubstantial nature as he leads you past them. For beneath them is a world of light whereon they cast no shadows. Their shadows lie upon the world beyond them, still further from the light, yet from them to the light their shadows cannot fall. Okay, so I'm going to stop here just to talk about this guilt. So here we're being given this visual that fear is like a false bottom floor that prevents us from seeing the truth, seeing the light. I still feel that the text comes across as very abstract, even though we're being given these nice visuals. So perhaps it's useful to take a minute to check in with yourself, to feel what it feels like when you feel fear. The different shades of fear, from terror to just simply being scared or frightened. When somebody from an incoming lane suddenly cuts across and cuts you off, you might feel that flash of fear, which then can be followed by anger. Fear can also appear as anxiety and, in an extreme case, panic. So perhaps take a moment to just explore instances that you can remember where you feel afraid or you feel frightened. And then, in addition, also exploring feelings of guilt. What does guilt feel like? And guilt shows up much more often than you think. We feel guilty when we think we have done something wrong. We experience the effects of guilt when somebody that we love or know feels like they have done something wrong to us. So both fear and guilt are tied intrinsically in this belief that whatever has unfolded shouldn't have unfolded in that way. That thought in and of itself is an argument against reality. For example, casting our mind back to the past, and we're thinking, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that, or they shouldn't have said that, or they shouldn't have done that. And so when we think the thought, that should thought, the common expression is that we should on ourselves, because as soon as we think the should thought, we are actually in an argument with reality, because it should have, you should have said that, you should have done that, they should have said that, they should have done that, for no other reason than that's exactly what happened. And so it happened in that way, even though it was uncomfortable, even though it was unexpected, even though it was unwanted, it happened in that way, and somehow it was supposed to unfold in that way. So for right now, we're just feeling out what fear feels like for us, what guilt feels like for us, and then creating the possibility for what would it be like to be ourselves in our everyday life without the fear and without any guilt. Who would we be? How would we show up? So I think that's perhaps a way to move away from the abstract nature of the text and then bring it into our direct experience. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again for paragraph 9. This world of light, this circle of brightness, is the real world, where guilt meets with forgiveness. Here the world outside is seen anew, without the shadow of guilt upon it. Here are you forgiven, for here you have forgiven everyone. Here is the new perception, where everything is bright and shining with innocence, washed in the waters of forgiveness and cleansed of every evil thought you laid upon it. Here there is no attack upon the Son of God, and you are welcome. Here is the innocence, waiting to clothe you and protect you and make you ready for the final step in the journey inward. Here are the dark and heavy garments of guilt laid by and gently replaced by purity and love. You know, what this is reminding me actually is that when I'm doing one-on-one sessions and the one has come in with a grievance, with an upset, and then we take the time to do the laying of hands with the intention to bring clarity, to bring peace, to bring truth, to bring more love into the situation. The language that we might use is that forgiveness is the bridge to clear seeing, to a shift in perception. But what I wanted to say is that it's strange, but oftentimes after the session, the light in the room changes. It's almost as though the light is in response to, or is a mirror maybe, that the light is a mirror for the darkness and the cloud cover of illusion of guilt and fear, and it disperses, and then the room becomes illuminated. And I've noticed this no matter where I am, whether I am doing the one-on-one session at a Lila or whether I'm doing a one-on-one session in a private home or at my cousin's clinic. It's so amazing. And I think too that when you really start to open your eyes to perceive this world through a symbolic lens, the world becomes very quick in playing the part of the mirror to reflect back how it is that you're doing. And so as we start to shift our perception and start to see this world through a symbolic lens, it becomes a very concise and immediate mirror, where I might be typing a word and then somebody in my external world says the word in a totally different context and sentence, or I might be writing out a text and I might be writing the word, and then same thing, someone in the external world repeats the word in a totally different context or a similar form of the word. The other day I was feeling some pressure inside, and I was really asking God for peace around it, to see clarity, to see it through His eyes. Here in Adelaide there are trains that will interrupt traffic, right? So you'll have to stop from the train. It runs right through the neighbourhoods. And so I was stopped at one of these very long traffic lights because the train was going, and sometimes it's two trains and sometimes it's 3 trains, and so sometimes you can be waiting for quite a long time compared to, say, waiting at a traffic light in New Jersey. And so as I was sitting there and feeling what I was feeling and really asking for peace and clarity and freedom around this feeling, which is forgiveness, I noticed the car that was stopped in front of me. And so the car was significant, and then I started to, the color was significant because it was the same car and the same color pertaining to this particular story that I was thinking about. And then I honed in on the license plate, and I saw that the name of the person who I was thinking about, that their name was spelled out in the license plate, that my birth date was spelled out in the license plate. And then there was the letter S, and so I asked through my mind, okay, what is the S symbolizing? What could that be? And the answer that came was that it was like an uncompleted infinity. It's not quite completed. And I thought, yeah, absolutely, that's true, because of I can tell that because of how I'm feeling. And then as I was going along the license plate, the next number was the number 8. And so the number 8 was that completed infinity. And so I thought, okay, everything's going to be okay, still on track, don't have to think about it or worry about it. But what I want to say is that shift in perception is forgiveness. That's what forgiveness is. And I feel like we have a misunderstanding of what forgiveness is, that it feels like a burden and it feels like a try to. But actually forgiveness is really just the realization that what I thought was happening, what I thought was going on, is actually not true. I've misunderstood what I'm seeing. I thought what I was seeing was a spider, but actually it's just a fuzzball. All right, so I'm going to go back to share, see what comes up next for us. So now we're at paragraph 10. Yet even forgiveness is not the end. Forgiveness does make lovely, but it does not create. It is the source of healing, but it is the messenger of love and not its source. Here you are led, that God himself can take the final step unhindered, for here does nothing interfere with love, letting it be itself. A step beyond this holy place of forgiveness, a step still further inward, but the one you cannot take transports you to something completely different. Here is the source of light, nothing perceived, forgiven, nor transformed, but merely known. Yeah. And that's what happens in the sessions. So there's no trying to forgive in the sessions. It's just simply we ask the questions, the perception shifts, peace comes in, love comes in, innocence is seen, and this is the conditions through which now God, the Holy Creator, your original light, your original divine essence, can do the rest. And that's what's pointing to that little willingness. That little willingness is just being able to show up, to be willing to share God's perspective on it. The sessions are quite miraculous. And it's not to say that after you leave the session that things won't continue to push your buttons. They can and they will. But at the same time, you can't unknow your shift in perception. And so you do have a baseline now from which you can align your small will to connect with God's will so that He can help peace enter into your heart where there wasn't peace. Because as we change our outlook, as our perception shifts, our energy shifts, and when our energy shifts, then our world shifts. Because our messengers don't have to be the messengers anymore. They're off the hook. They don't have to keep pushing our buttons to, in the face of their selfishness, in the face of their unloving behavior, that they're giving us the opportunity to be selfless and to be loving in the face of it. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be walked all over or anything like that. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be taken advantage of. What I'm talking about here is strength, actually. All right, so I'm going to go back now to our text. And, okay, we're going to learn about the course. So, paragraph 11. This course will lead to knowledge, but knowledge itself is still beyond the scope of our curriculum. Nor is there any need for us to try to speak of what must forever lie beyond words. We need remember only that whoever attains the real world beyond which learning cannot go, will go beyond it, but in a different way. Where learning ends, there God begins. For learning ends before Him who is complete where He begins, and there is no end. It is not for us to dwell on what cannot be attained. There is too much to learn. The readiness for knowledge still must be attained. Okay. Yeah, so we're in the process of learning, or perhaps more accurately unlearning, and then knowledge, true knowledge, is God's domain. And so right now we're just showing up, doing our best, letting the words wash over us and practicing the lessons, see what happens next, being curious, being observers. But I would say from a practical standpoint that it is helpful to work with somebody or take a class that is really helping you see the world, to see this reality through a symbolic lens. Because when you start seeing the world through a symbolic lens, everything becomes like magic. And most importantly, we don't take it personally. Because we'll see that it has a purpose, and the purpose is important. All right, lots of birdie action going on in the background. I remember I changed my settings this morning because I watched my friend come out doing a comedy performance. And so the performance was via Zoom, and so then we as the audience needed to be heard. Our responses, our laughter, our applauding needed to be heard. So we changed all the Zoom settings, and I don't remember what I did, so I now am wondering if the birdie sounds are somehow much more amplified. But anyway, I do have my headset, so anyway, lots of chatter in our world, which is a good thing, right? So that's all the chattery thoughts, the distracting thoughts. But it's also the symphony too, isn't it? Okay, so paragraph 12. Love is not learned. Its meaning lies within itself, and learning ends when you have recognized all it is not. That is the interference. That is what needs to be undone. Love is not learned because there never was a time in which you knew it not. Learning is useless in the presence of your Creator, whose acknowledgement of you and yours of Him so far transcend all learning that everything you learned is meaningless, replaced forever by the knowledge of love and its one meaning. I think that's self-explanatory, so I'm going to continue with paragraph 13. Your relationship with your brother has been uprooted from the world of shadows, and its unholy purpose has been safely brought through the barriers of guilt, washed with forgiveness, and set shining and firmly rooted in the world of light. From there it calls to you to follow the course it took, lifted high above the darkness and gently placed before the gates of heaven. The holy instant in which you and your brother were united is but the messenger of love, sent from beyond forgiveness to remind you of all that lies beyond it. Yet it is through forgiveness that it will be remembered. Yeah, so again, forgiveness seems like a necessary course, and I've heard the Course in Miracles being described as a course in forgiveness, but actually we don't need forgiveness when our perception shifts so that we share God's vision. And one of the ways to share God's vision is to ask, how is this helping me actually? What is the true purpose of that which is unfolding? I acknowledge that in some way it's helping me. How is it helping me? And asking, what is it that I need to remember? What is it that I need to see in order to be on the other side of it and to be at peace? Forgiveness is simply what we think we need when we are not abiding in unconditional love, which is what we are. And so there are a lot of forgiveness practices out there where you might be repeating to yourself, I forgive myself, I forgive others. But my experience of that is that it feels like it's trying to, especially if you don't really. Right? Like we've been told that we need to forgive this person who betrayed us or who did us wrong or who hurt us, who attacked us, that in order for us to be at peace, we're supposed to forgive them, because if we keep the anger, it's the poison that we drink. We just continue hurting ourselves. So we are taught that. We are cognizant of that. But when we try to forgive from that place of betrayal, it is impossible. And then we've added on this extra layer of try to energy. And then we have the guilt of failure and still feeling those unpleasant feelings. And so what I'm saying is that when we shift our perception, we simply ask for the shift in perception. And then when the shift of perception takes place, then there is no need for forgiveness. That forgiveness is inherent with that. There's no trying to. And the greatest realization is, oh, I asked them to be that. I asked them to play that perfect part in order for me to have an opportunity to stand up for myself, to be strong, to have more faith, to have more love, to bring in more generosity, to not be that for the coming generations, to make a different choice, to know what it feels like to be betrayed, to make a commitment to not betray going forward. All right, so we're almost at the end here, so let's keep going with chapter 14. Okay, and so when the memory of God has come to you in the holy place of forgiveness, you will remember nothing else. That's right. And memory will be as useless as learning, for your only purpose will be creating. So good. Yes. Yet this you cannot know until every perception has been cleansed and purified and finally removed forever. Forgiveness removes only the untrue, lifting the shadows from the world and carrying it safe and sure within its gentleness to the bright world of new and clean perception. This is your purpose now, and it is there that peace awaits you. Beautiful. This is worth screenshotting, I think. All right, so I'm going to go from here. I'm going to go back to our workbook, and we are at lesson 23. I'm just double checking that we are on lesson 23. Yes. All right, I'm going to have the narrator read for us.
Lesson 23. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The idea for today contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless. But this way cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts, then, that we must work if your perception of the world is to be changed. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There is no point in lamenting the world. There is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically. The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Each of your perceptions of external reality is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. One can well ask if this can be called seeing. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process, and hallucination a more appropriate term for the result? You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means, for where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images, and so transform them that you will love them, even though they were made of hate. For you will not be making them alone. The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified and then let go so that it can be replaced. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. By taking the first two steps, you will see that this is so. Besides using it throughout the day as the need arises, 5 practice periods are required in applying today's idea. As you look about you, repeat the idea slowly to yourself first, and then close your eyes and devote about a minute to searching your mind for as many attack thoughts as occur to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about blank. Hold each attack thought in mind as you say this, and then dismiss that thought and go on to the next. In the practice periods, be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. Their effects are exactly the same because they are exactly the same. You do not recognize this as yet, and you are asked at this time only to treat them as the same in today's practice periods. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. When you finally learn that thoughts of attack and of being attacked are not different, you will be ready to let the cause go.
Okay, wow, great. All right, so we are going to practice this together for 1 minute. We will begin with our eyes closed, searching the mind for attack thoughts, whether we are outwardly attacking or we feel like we're being attacked. So as usual, just start to take a minute to feel what it is to be here, inhabiting the body. Take a moment to feel the furniture that's holding you, feel the support of the floor. Take a moment to remind yourself that you are safe in this moment. Come home to the breath as it is right here at the nostrils, what the natural ebb and flow of your own breathing feels like. And I'm going to go back to share the screen though, so that you can see the language if you needed to look again. So the idea for the lesson today is I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. And so you're repeating to yourself as you scan your mind for attack thoughts, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about, and then specifically naming them. All right, so go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer. Starting now. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about. All right, so that's the timer. So the suggested practice periods are 5 times. So I think the easiest way to structure your practice periods, as I've said before, is morning, afternoon, and then in the evening, and then 2 practice periods in between there. So let's go now to look at the principle. So we're going back to the text, the meaning of miracles, the principles of miracles. And so the principle we'll be looking at today is number 41. Wholeness is the perceptual content of miracles. They thus correct or atone for the faulty perception of lack. Okay, so when we have lack thinking, scarcity thinking, we know that we are preventing miracles from being able to manifest for us. Scarcity thinking, lack thinking is an effect of separation, is an effect of that illusion. So when we notice that that's the line of thinking that we're subscribing to, then we can use this principle to remind us that it's actually wholeness that helps us create the conditions for miracles. All right, so have fun practicing this lesson. And as always, I invite you to check the Alila Center calendar for online events, where I'm teaching a monthly mindfulness-based meditation class that's on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern. And on the 4th Monday of the month, I also teach a meditation, natural healing, self-help class, both of which are helping create the conditions for miracles, which is why we do them, which is why we show up for them. And it's nice to be in community as well with our brothers and sisters with a like-minded intent. All right, wonderful. Thank you again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time.